Hi, thanks for joining us again. I am Emma Mitchell and I'm an energy healing guide, and I'm here with Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Fishkin, and I'm a life coach that focuses on helping people avoid overwhelm, burnout, limiting beliefs, and the lack of self-worth.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. So, last week we talked about how to set your day up proactively so you don't get derailed. Today, we're going to give you some practical tips to not let yourself get derailed with other people's things. And that becomes the hardest thing because you can say, all day long, I'm going to only do my stuff, but something is bound to come up that may or may not be an emergency. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So the first thing I want to mention is when you are planning out your day proactively, make sure that you put some white space into your calendar. So those could be times that you deal with some of these things coming up. And there will probably, or there may be other things that come up. And those are the things we're going to talk about that are maybe emergencies and maybe not. That these are when we're trying to figure out should I or shouldn't I help this person, or when can I put this into my plans. So we have created a list of themes to chat about today. So we're just going to kind of bounce back and forth and try to make this more of a conversational topic than we have before. So, Rebecca, do you want to talk about anything with that or reliability versus being a doormat?
Sure. Yeah, it seems like a common trait of people is to be people pleasing. So, for whatever reason, maybe it is their why to do whatever they can at the sacrifice of themselves for other people. And that I don't know, maybe that's what their core value is. At the same time, you can only do so much for others if you don't take care of yourself. And that could lead you to overwhelm or burnout. Clever. So part of this is figuring out, I think the biggest part of this at the beginning is figuring out what are some we talked about last time about do not disturb, like having times that you have blocked off for just you. That way you can have more of yourself to give to other people so that if you tend to be a people pleaser, then you can do that. At the same time, it's also understanding why are you people pleasing? Is it because um, you haven't set expectations with them, so you don't want to disappoint? Is it because they are, you don't want to have a fear of a loss or a job? Or, you know, our brain is taught to be judgmental, and it's not necessarily always a good thing. So, are we people pleasing in order to avoid personal judgment of other people? Those are some things that I thought of. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, well, as an energy healer, I often work in the chakras, and the throat chakra is often where I see the people pleasing symptom because this is where we've suppressed our own voice and personality, and our boundaries kind of live in this area too. So often I'm helping people on rebalancing their throat chakra to help them to stand up for themselves more. So I'm actually doing a workshop tonight about it. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people to understand why they are people pleasing. Like you're saying, the fear of loss, the fear of losing a job or losing a relationship in is often the reason that we're taking on the emergencies of others. And there's other reasons, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but this concept of being reliable versus being a people pleaser, it can get
Mm-hmm.
really hard to differentiate. Am I doing this for others because of fear, or am I doing this because this is my job and I need people to respect me and I need to have a good reputation? So, we were talking earlier about categorizing your emergencies. And in this concept is it doesn't have to take you to all day to categorize this, but what's important to you to get done when it comes up? If your family member has a health issue, well, that probably constitutes as an emergency, right? Depending
Right.
if they're in the hospital. If you have a client calling and wants to do a sales call that day, for me, that's probably in my emergency list that I'm going to talk to them that same day. But if you have somebody saying, hey, can you get me this paperwork or this link to something from 10 months ago? That's either going to go on the end of my day or maybe the next day. But giving somebody the information of, hey, I can or cannot handle this for you today, setting those expectations is a really big deal. So I don't know if there's other things you can think of, Rebecca, as far as categorizing emergencies, but I think it does help set us up to know, hey, I am going to tackle this right now, or it's okay if this goes in my maybe tomorrow pile.
Yeah, it's something that I thought of while you were you brought something up to my mind, and that is if someone gives you some paperwork to do. So we just started working with a new advisor, and she gave us a bunch of paperwork. She said, I'm going to email you tonight. And my immediate reaction was, what is your time frame? What is your expectation on when I need to get that back to you so that I can fill that expectation rather than, okay, so I got the email at 8 o'clock last night. So do I have to fill it out tonight and then get it back to her tomorrow morning? Or can this wait until Friday? So thinking proactively when someone asks you for something so that you can set up those expectations right ahead of time. And I agree with what you said about health things. Like there's very clear things that are emergencies. Is there blood? Did someone die? Or is there a hospital involved? Those are definitely emergencies. Or is there a flood or a fire? Right? Some of them are pretty obvious. Other times, I don't think it's as clear, and we need to train ourselves to ask the questions to determine, is this an emergency or not? And when are you willing to let your boundaries down?
Yeah. I forgot we had talked about that a long time ago of asking the question first, because oftentimes we may think somebody needs this hour, but they don't need it for a week. So, what are we doing inside ourselves trying to spin and spin and spin, trying to get something to somebody that it's actually not as important as we think it might be? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think along those lines, we also know the nervous Nellies, the people who they, whatever it is, they are in crisis mode. And it's not important to us. We can tell that it's not that big of a deal, but that's our perception. So part of it is also helping them come to reality, calm down. What are some alternatives? If we talked about this tomorrow, we both can have a clearer perspective on it and be able to solve it in a much more open manner than when you're frantic. I'm not going to tell someone they're being frantic, but you see what I mean.
Yeah, actually, I've noticed that in my life when somebody's frantic and they need something, if you just give them a couple hours, they figure it out on their own too. Just,
Right?
yeah,
Exactly. If you don't get back to someone right away, they've called you like 4 times in 2 minutes and you haven't gotten back to them yet. By the time you get back to them, they figured it out.
yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes that helps.
Empowering people in their own lives. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, actually, it gets us to this concept of inner wisdom and why are you maybe people pleasing, or why do you feel like you have these knee-jerk reactions to emergencies? And I know we talked, some of it is about fear or fear of disappointment, but you and I both teach some about inner wisdom, clarity inside. And I just want to remind everybody to go back to their body. If somebody asks you for something, if you feel like it's an emergency or you're not sure, ask your body, hey, how does this feel? Does this feel like anxiety? Does it feel like fear? Or does it feel like, oh, I can do this for this person. This feels good for me right now. A lot of times I get kind of spun up when there's an emergency and I have to let my body relax a little bit so I can be the best customer service person to
Hmm.
that client or to that person who needs something from me. And it's not going to be an immediate reaction because often my immediate reaction is, oh no, I was trying to do all these other things and now I have to deal with this. But when I feel my body has responded in an appropriate, joyful, or relaxed way, I know that it's correct for me to help this person out. So I don't know. I know I also have written down values. So I know, Rebecca, you probably want to talk a little bit about values here too.
Sure. Part of having value, your core values, understanding what your core values are. And if this person and their crisis, request, however you want to term it, doesn't fit within your values and they want it done yesterday, it's going to automatically create probably some negativity within you. And that's something to pay attention to because if you were to drop everything and do this thing for somebody that doesn't fit into your core values, it could eventually create resentment and impact that relationship much better, much worse than you would want. So we talked about judgment earlier. That gives us that chance to either avoid or create a better judgment rather than something that's negative. I think something else that we had talked about was what if you take on somebody's emergency because you really are avoiding what you should be focusing on? And that is some inner wisdom that you can only choose. So if it's time to give the dog a bath and it's just definitely something you don't want to do, I'll look for something to procrastinate on at any time versus we really do need to focus on what is our priority at the moment. We had this time block to do XYZ to wash the dog. So I can't do this right now, but I can start looking at it in an hour when I'm dried off.
Well, speaking of that, both you and I do energetic and emotional block releases. So going back to that, let's take doing sales calls as an example. You're avoiding it. Somebody else has an emergency that's not an emergency, and you say, I'm just going to do that instead of calling my 5 people on my list today. There's probably some sort of emotional or energetic block within you that is causing you to procrastinate on this thing. So, Rebecca and I both, we do this stuff. So, if you feel like you're running up against a wall all the time and you're always getting derailed, we can help you find the root cause. We can help you heal and move through that stuff because chances are it's subconscious or it might be something that's not even yours, generational or whatever, that is causing you to not want to do your own stuff. So, not going to be victim, not going to put blame anywhere. But if you want to move through those things, that's definitely stuff that we can help you with.
Well,
Um,
that, and
yeah,
just
go
to
ahead.
add one point to what you're saying, is to also, if you continue in that vein where you're constantly people pleasing and allowing their priorities to become your priorities, you are going to be living in reactive, putting out the fire, chaos all the time, which is not sustainable.
Yeah, that reminds me of I was in a job for a couple of years where it was during the pandemic and we were just constant reactive, reactive, reactive. And when things finally slowed down, my body couldn't handle it. And I was so burnt out that I left the job. I started my own business, but I needed probably a good year to recover from that constant chaos. Just always, what does somebody else need? What does somebody else need? And it was just never a strategic move towards a foundation in that position. But it took me a long time to get out of that. And I know you've dealt with burnout too, and that's what you help people with.
Yeah. And it's because of it's not understanding and being aware that we're putting other people first. We are not emergency room doctors
Yeah.
or nurses. Those people are amazing. And I am so grateful that they do what they do. And know your own strengths. That is not mine.
Yeah.
So I would much rather serve people and make a difference in people's lives on a much more calmer, proactive manner than reactive, because I can be a better help and assistant and guide for them than I would be if I was in the chaotic mode.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to talk about sacrifice because
Mm.
I love the way that you say it. So will you say your yes to somebody?
So if you say yes to somebody or something, you're saying no to something else. So if you're saying yes to someone else's emergency, you're saying no to something that might be very important to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we were talking earlier about both of us, even though we're very aware of these things, yesterday we put somebody's emergency before our own and we didn't take care of ourselves. So for me, I knew I needed to do some meditation and some things to let go of some chaotic energies and emotions that I had going on yesterday. And I didn't do that before a call with someone. And I know that I didn't bring my best self to the table. And you told me a story about taking a phone call and letting somebody else's emergency derail your introvert self time. And it's a good point. It all kind of leads back to sacrifice. If you're not putting yourself first, if you're not putting your tasks, your productivity, your strategy, or yourself first, and you're allowing people's emergencies to derail you, your livelihood goes down, but you're also not there for other people. You're like a 50% full person and you can't fully be there for your clients, for your customers, for your coworkers, for your relationships if you're always allowing everybody else's stuff to layer upon you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it goes back to some of our prior episodes where we've talked about knowing what you need to regenerate, to be at your best so that you can give others your best. And if we sacrifice our own downtime and our own self-care, and we are constantly doing things for others, it we're going to crash. And that doesn't help anybody because while you're crashed, they're going to need you too. And that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I just recently had a client telling me that her kid knows when she's not at her best and will give her a hard time about it, becomes almost even needier. And I mean, that's kind of terrible, but kids are very perceptive to how we're feeling. And if you're not at your best, then you can't be your best for anybody else. And it's worse when they point it out, I think.
Well, and you actually bring up a good point in that we may give our best to somebody who's in crisis. And then as soon as we go into the kitchen with our spouse or significant other, they're getting the irritation, like they're getting irrational behavior from us because we are not there for them. We're still in the bad energy from what we did to help somebody else when we just didn't have it in us to do it at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That leads us into this concept of we cannot control what other people say or do or want from us, but what we can control is our reaction to it and the way that we handle it, our own action. Are we allowing their emergency to derail our day, or are we setting a boundary or an expectation with them? Because a lot of times people get into this blaming mode of, well, didn't they know that I'm working on this thing today? How dare they call me or how dare they ask for this? But they're in their own world. It's
Mm-hmm.
not their fault. You're the one who can say, I'm not going to answer that call today, or I'm going to do that tomorrow. It's not up to them. We can't control them, but we can control ourselves.
Yes. And I think part of that also comes down to it's setting boundaries. So there are some people that know. I have a one of my other roles is in real estate, and I always take Sundays off, especially during football season. My Zen day is to sit and watch football and craft all day. And I have a lot of past clients who know that I'm going to be watching football. And the only thing that they can do on that day is say, go team or whatever. But and they make a joke out of it. Well, we know that we can't do this on Sunday. So it's but because I communicated that up front that I need this time so that I can help you better, they most I will say that they understand. And getting back to values, if your values are not in alignment and they want to disrespect your boundaries and your values, then it probably isn't a good match anyway. Things happen for a reason.
Very good point. Yeah. And we talked about this. You have to be your own advocate. Nobody else is going to stand up for you. I mean, somebody might, right? But like you have to be the one that stands up for yourself in these situations because people are people and whether they mean to or not, they may bowl over your boundaries if you let them. So you have to be the one that stands firm in them. And I know we talked about, and I've said this to so many people, it's the hardest to set boundaries, new boundaries with your friends that you've been friends with a long time and your family members because they've known you for so long as this past version of yourself. But when you meet new people and you set these boundaries, they're more likely to abide by them because they
Right.
know you in that boundary, they know that expectation. So, as you're trying to be better to yourself, as you're trying to set better boundaries, be more proactive, not let yourself get derailed, remember to be patient with those you've known for a while because those people have known you in your past self, your past people pleasing self, your past not as firm self. And it's going to take a while for them to rewrite this respect and these expectations into the way that they look at you or they react with you. And unfortunately, some people aren't going to respect it at all. And you may need to go back to your inner wisdom and ask yourself, should I or should not I not have this person in my life?
Or sit down with them
Yeah.
and say, I really want to help you and I want to meet you where you are. However, sometimes I can't. Would you rather take this to somebody else, or would you rather give me the patience and the space so that I can then get myself to a point where I can better help you? And if they are all in, then they'll agree to that. Again, if it's not, then it wasn't meant to be anyway. And sometimes that's not easy to hear, but it's the truth, because if you continue to let them overtake and interrupt your boundaries, then that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
And something else I thought of, this is we're talking about starting in many cases a habit, a new habit
Hmm.
of, oh, and when would you like this to be done by? And is this when you say, when we talk about an emergency, is this on a scale of 1 to 10? Is this like a 10? We are all in, you got to get going ASAP in the car, speed here. Or is this it's not that big of a deal. Today it just came up and I didn't want to forget to tell you, so I just called you. So you need to train yourself to ask the questions. And if many of these things come up when you're sitting at your computer, can you put a post-it note or some kind of a note on your laptop or on your screen that is a reminder of when the phone rings and someone is calling with a critical issue, that you look at that post-it and go, oh yeah, I need to ask questions, so that you can train yourself, not only train them, but you need to train yourself too.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And a good reminder about communication too, because I know a lot of people who've tried to start putting up boundaries, but they don't communicate to anybody about it. And then they just get all crappy with everybody else. And it's like, hold on a second. We still love you. Tell us what's happening. Don't just put up a invisible wall here. So having those chats, the communication, and remembering that this is a conversation with yourself as well. Don't beat yourself up as you're starting out this journey to stop people pleasing or being better to yourself. Just if you slip up, that's okay. Just remember next time to maybe try it a different way. Um and I do want to remind folks too that don't try to set too many things at once. Like you had said, you're
Very true.
starting a habit, right? So maybe one or two promises to yourself that I'm going to do better with these things and this is how. But don't try and say, okay, now I've got 20 boundaries and 20 things that I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to do different because you're going to slip up. So just try one or two things in the beginning and see if they work for you.
So I what we want to close with is that to sum all of this up is that we want to be as proactive as we can, knowing that things happen that we need to react to. Setting yourself up with tools and systems that will help you handle reactivity at a much more lower stress and lower intensity will help you avoid burnout and overwhelm and needing the energy blocks that are relieving the energy blocks. Hopefully you don't need us for those things. However, if you see a repeated behavior and you continue to find yourself in a reactive, crazy, chaotic day over and over again, call both of us or one of us, and we can absolutely help you get through that.
Yeah.
So thanks for being with us today. It's always great talking to you, Emma.
Yeah, you too, Rebecca. I was just thinking these have been really fun doing these videos, and I always learn things from you, so it's awesome. Okay,
Back at you.
awesome. Cool. Well, I guess we'll have another video next week with a new topic relating to mindset and joy.
Sounds good.
All right,
Take care.
bye. Hold on.